Nowadays, phones are expensive. Really expensive. Budget phones are an option, but even those are too expensive for some people. You could always go to your local Walmart and get one of these cheap Android phones, but most of them are abysmal. That's where the Essential phone comes in. The Essential PH-1 was an ambitious flagship from 2017, created by Android co-founder Andy Rubin, that sold itself to be a phone with only the bare essentials. But at the premium price of $700, customers weren't too excited to buy a phone that lacks many of the features that similarly priced phones had at the time. But now you can pick this phone up used on eBay for $70 to $100, which is a steal in my opinion. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why. So without any further ado, let's get into it. The Essential PH-1 comes with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 835, paired with 4GB of RAM and 128GB of non-upgradable storage. The 5.7-inch LCD display has a resolution of 2560 by 1312, with a DPI of 505 pixels per inch, and has an 8-megapixel selfie camera right in the center. On the rear of the device you'll find the dual 13-megapixel cameras, one of which is a monochrome sensor, and right below that you have the fingerprint sensor. The 3040 mAh battery is non-user replaceable and is quick charged via the USB Type-C 2.0 port. The build is a stunning combination of titanium sides with a ceramic back and Corning Gorilla Glass 5 display. This design holds up really well even when compared to modern phones. Which leads me to my first point, which is the design. I absolutely love the way this phone feels. It reminds me of the iPhone 4 and 5 and the way they felt to hold. It just feels really premium. This may come off as controversial, but I really wish more phones would kind of go away from the smooth edge design in favor of this more sharp, boxy design. That of course is personal preference, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that prefers it. The Essential phone was actually one of the first phones to use the notch design in order to eliminate bezels. I actually don't mind the notch on this phone. It's pretty small and isn't too distracting. Since we're on the topic of the screen, I have to say it isn't a bad screen. Now as I said before, the display uses LCD technology, so you won't be getting the awesome contrast and super dark blacks that OLED phones have. But for less than $100 you really shouldn't be expecting to get an OLED display, unless you get a really old Samsung phone. Viewing angles are great, and the screen gets decently bright. It isn't the brightest display I've seen, but I personally haven't had any issues seeing it in the sun. Moving on to the software, you'll be pleased to know that the Essential phone comes with a basically bone-stock Android experience. Although the latest version of Android that this phone supports is Android 10, and the Essential has confirmed that this will be the last update. So I guess now is a good time to tell you that Essential as a company is no more. They went out of business, so you won't be getting any support for this device. For me that's not an issue because I like to tinker with my devices, so if I get tired of not having the latest Android version, I can always root the phone and install a more up-to-date ROM. Now to my main point as to why you would probably want to get this phone over a cheap budget phone. Performance. For the price I could not find a single phone that has similar specs. The closest thing I could find was the LG V20 for $80 to $100. But I wouldn't recommend it because those older LG phones had issues with the eMMC storage failing, causing a permanent boot loop. And it actually happened to me with my V20. But anyways, the Essential phone performs very well given its age, and I have yet to have any problems when running apps. The UI is very smooth and opening apps is snappy. Multitasking works great thanks to the 4GB of RAM, and for most people I think they'll find the speed of this phone to be perfectly acceptable. And finally, the fingerprint sensor is very responsive and it rarely fails to recognize my fingerprint. Battery life on this phone is great given the age of the battery, and I almost always still have a charge at the end of the day, although it should be noted that I probably don't use my phone as much as most people. That being said, I do occasionally check my social media, take photos, and make phone calls on a daily basis, and as long as you're not gaming all day, I think the battery will last a full day. And even if it doesn't, this phone does support fast charging over USB-C, so it doesn't take too long to charge. Moving on to the cameras. This is arguably the most disappointing feature of this phone. I say that because compared to other phones of the time, the camera is just lackluster. I constantly have to retake photos because the auto white balance messes up, I lose focus, or the auto exposure ruins the shot. That being said, when I do finally get a good photo, the quality is okay. Video on this phone can be shot at 4K 30, 1080-60, or 720-120 for slow motion. Videos look fine, but in my case I have an issue where at the beginning of the video the mic makes a popping noise. Here's a sample of what that sounds like. Speaking of audio, the speaker on this phone is okay. It gets decently loud without distorting, but it is a down-firing speaker and it's really easy to cover with your hand by mistake. Here's an audio sample. So that concludes my review of the Essential PH-1. If you're looking for a good phone for less than $100, then this is the phone for you. I've been using this phone as my daily driver for almost a year, and the only issue I've had is the mic crackling in my videos. But other than that, it's a fantastic phone for the price, and I would buy it again if I had to. That being said, if you want to spend a little bit more money, you can get the Google Pixel 2 XL, which has mostly similar specs, but with dual front-facing speakers, a better camera, and an OLED screen. But that about wraps this one up. So if you liked the video, be sure to hit like, and if you want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing, it helps a lot. If you don't want to miss any future videos, be sure to hit that bell icon. So as always, I hope to see you in the next one. Later.